everybody. Welcome to the Leadoff Spot on YesNetwork.com. I'm Doug Williams. Today we're talking Yankees and Orioles, and we're joined by Dan Connolly of the Baltimore Sun to talk about this series. Dan, thanks so much for coming on.
No problem, Doug. Thanks for having me.
So let's get right to it. The Orioles' offense is pretty much incredible 1 through 9. But I will say Chris Davis is having kind of a tough year. Is Nelson Cruz's great year kind of taking the attention off of that, off season for Chris Davis?
Well, you know what? I think maybe nationally it is. I think locally it's not. I think people really are kind of putting Davis in the spotlight. I mean, the guy hit 53 homers last year, 138 RBIs. He's been basically batting around the Mendoza line 200 all year. He does have 14 home runs, but, you expect more out of him. And he's had to deal with an oblique injury that kind of sidelined him for about 2.5 weeks or so. And he really just hasn't gotten back to form. And I think that's something that's a real concern to an extent for Orioles fans. However, they think of the All-Star break and give him a little bit of time to rest a little bit both mentally and physically, that he maybe can come back strong in the second half.
And the AL East, Dan, I mean, the Orioles are in first place, but a lot of the rhetoric you hear in the media is kind of mediocrity and that kind of stuff about how everyone's so close and bunched together. Orioles fans, do they believe in this team, that this team can kind of carry through and stay at the top of this division as the season goes on?
I think it's kind of a mixed bag, honestly, Doug. I mean, you look at this team, it hasn't played particularly well. It has won games when it kind of, late in games, they won, I think they're 8-3 at this point in extra inning games. They hit a lot of home runs, and they've gotten some big swings late to win games. And I think that gives this kind of same feeling as 2012 when they did that, when they were 16-2 in extra inning games, and they seemed to win at the end a lot. And I think that kind of is a bit of a pervasive feeling for fans. This team's got maybe a little bit of that magic in the past. I mean, Manny Machado was suspended for 5 games. They had to play with 24 minutes out of 25, and they went 4-1 in that stretch. They have not played particularly well at stretches and still won 3 of 4 or swept the Texas Rangers. I mean, I think that the feeling is that this team should be better, and that if it hits on all cylinders, if the Chris Davises and J.J. Hardys and guys like that really start to do what they've done in the past offensively, and they get a little bit better starting pitching, this could be a really good team. But I think that the jury's still out here in Baltimore because they haven't played particularly well, but because of what you call the mediocrity of the division, they've been able to be in first place.
So obviously the Yankees were scheduled to throw Masahiro Tanaka on Sunday. That's not going to happen. The Orioles really don't have a number 1 guy either. Do you see either of these teams going after David Price, and do you see the Rays potentially trading him within the division?
I don't see him trading within the division. I mean, Price has next year as well in the contract, and I think that they basically, they're going to get a lot for David Price if they trade David Price. And obviously there are teams out there, many teams out there that want him, and I think they would like to stay away from trading him within the division. That's kind of the sense the Orioles organization gets, that Price is not going to be available to them. Whether the Orioles go out and get a ace, if you will, there's just not a lot of guys out there, and although they do have a lot of, or several top pitching prospects that, a lot of teams are interested in, they feel some of those could even help them this year. Kevin Gausman's kind of been up and down for the Orioles, from the minors to the majors, but has done fairly well since he's been in the majors this year. And Dylan Bundy, who's considered their top prospect, and one of the top prospects in baseball, could help out in September, maybe even late August. So the Orioles will probably do something, because Dan Duquette always does something, but I'm not sure that they're going to get that big splash of an ace.
Do you think the Orioles necessarily miss that number 1 starter, especially if they make the playoffs? Like, could they go after a Cole Hamels, or do you think they're willing to go with a 5-man rotation full of kind of the Bud Norrises of the world?
Yeah, I mean, I think in a perfect world they'd love to have that ace. It's just a matter of what it would take to get one. And I mean, if they can find, if Cole Hamels is indeed available and they can make a fit, I think they would love to have that number 1 guy. That's what they're missing. In fact, this team reminds me of the 2012 team, which many of us felt was better than the Yankees. But the Yankees won that division series because CC Sabathia was just that much better than what the Orioles threw out there, and won 2 of those games. And I mean, I think that's going to be a problem when it gets to the postseason, is if you have really good pitchers who keep the ball in the ballpark. The Orioles are going to have some struggles because they don't have that shutdown guy.
Now that we're, almost at the All-Star break, I want to get a quick prediction out of you, Dan, if we can. Who do you see ending up at the top of the division when the season's over?
Well, it's funny. I had the Rays at the beginning of the year, and obviously that doesn't look good, but they really made a surge.
A lot of us did.
I think the Orioles can hang on. I do. And I don't think it's because the Orioles are, they are a flawed team. but I watched the Blue Jays and the Yankees play recently, and they have flaws. Mainly, a lot of it's injury for those teams right now. The Orioles have kind of, although they lost Matt Wieters for the entire year, which is obviously a devastating blow, they've been fairly healthy otherwise. And I think that if they stay that way, and like I said, Duquette will do something to fill some hole, I think the Orioles probably could hang on. But you never count the Yankees. Yeah, I guess you can't count the Blue Jays. And, I mean, the Rays with that pitching can always make a surge.
Yeah, it's really unbelievable how close everybody is together and how everyone's kind of not reached their full potential yet. Well, Dan, thanks so much. This has been the Leadoff Spot for YesNetwork.com. Don't forget, you can watch the Orioles and the Yankees Friday night on Yes with first pitch around 7, and then Saturday afternoon at 4 p.m. with first pitch. I'm Doug Williams. We'll see you next time, everybody.